everyone. Welcome to our virtual session for the National Institute for the Study of Transfer Students Conference. We're so glad you joined us today. The title of our presentation today is Not So Secret Strategies for Serving Transfers, a University and Community College Pipeline for Student Success. My name is Kelly Koch, and I serve as Director of Programs for Texas A&M University-Texarkana at Northeast Texas Community College and Paris Junior College. With us today, we have my colleague, my friend, my mentor, and my former superior, Dr. Glenda Ballard.
Hi, everyone. My name is Glenda Ballard. I am currently serving as the Associate Vice President for Graduate and Professional Studies at a small private school, St. Edward's University in Austin, Texas.
All right, so just an overview of our presentation today. We are going to do an introduction on our presentation. Also, we're going to provide a historical significance and the lessons that we have learned together for the past 20 years. Dr. Ballard, as I mentioned, is my former superior, and for this particular partnership that we're talking about, that we have experience with, Dr. Ballard, her knowledge and her experience is the best, and she was a part of this partnership from day one. So we're also going to talk about the partnership and how both sides can win. And at the end of the day, as we always say, what does the data say? And the data is going to give us the true story.
Our objectives for today's presentation include the following. We want to explain some lessons learned from 20 years of a community college-university partnership in Northeast Texas. We'd like to outline the roles of the university and the community college partners in serving transfer students. How do each side participate? We'll discuss some examples of how data informs the decision. Kelly is participating in her doctoral research study over this very topic, and it has tremendous information for us. And last but not least, we'd like to list some advising practices that work for transfers from the community college to the university, both public and private, that I am now learning in this private setting.
All right, so the literature. What is the literature telling us about community college and university partnerships? So Alec and West tell us that community colleges in the United States are the higher education landscape, but it is critical regarding the community college students' aptitude and preparedness to become transfer students in attending universities to earn those bachelor's degrees. So we know since 2016 that enrollment at the universities and community college has increased, particularly at the community college. However, and we also know from the data and the literature that 44% of these undergraduate students began at the community college. However, not all of these students transfer to the university. So these students obviously are facing hurdles in that transfer, that seamless transition to become a transfer student to attend the university.
So a little bit about this partnership that began a little over 20 years ago. Having grown up in rural Northeast Texas and having been a community college graduate myself, I was very passionate about the power of the transfer process. I had transferred from a 2-year to a 4-year school and had only lost one course, and that was an elective that I chose to take. By staying on path, I was able to finish in 4 years and get through the pipeline in a very systematic process. So fast forward a few years, and I was working in higher ed and worked at a community college for 5 years, and then moved onto the university, as Kelly said. I was in Texas A&M University-Texarkana as a faculty member when this was established in 1999, knowing that there were transfer students who were a direct feed into the university. And at that time, our university, A&M Texarkana, was an upper division school only. So we depended solely upon transfer students. We did not have the first 2 years. So given that it was our survival, if you will, we clearly had to learn the importance of receiving those transfer students when they came in the door. But during this time period, a Regents Initiative for Excellence, which was one of the initiatives from the A&M System Board, developed a comprehensive action plan to address teacher recruitment and retention. And really what this model included was going to the community college. So rather than have the students come to us, we went to them. The partners here were Texas A&M University-Texarkana and Northeast Texas Community College in Mount Pleasant, Texas. The distance there is about 60 miles. This is a largely rural agrarian economy. The socioeconomics of this area is quite low. And many students do start at the community college. And as Kelly said, oftentimes stop out for a number of reasons. Even if they go for a vocational program to get certified in a particular area, still the idea of going on to the four-year institution should be something that everyone should consider, at least have as an option, and have a seamless transfer in order to be able to do that. So our purpose was there first and foremost to try to address teacher recruitment and retention, because there was such a shortage for teachers in this time period, but then also to address all transfer students in that process. Our service area was predominantly the same for both institutions, and it was about a 10-county area, and you see the names of the counties there. And I can tell you that Red River and Marion counties, for example, are two of the lowest socioeconomic counties in the state of Texas. And so lots of challenges, lots of hurdles for these transfer students. The purpose was to address place-bound students because gas at that time was expensive, and that ability to drive back and forth was a challenge. The nearest transfer school was about 75 miles away. And so distance obviously was perceived as one of the barriers almost immediately when it came to trying to get to the university. So this partnership really began to focus on this idea of what if we take the professor to the students at the community college, and everyone wins as a result of that. So that was the original model. And from there, that partnership has continued and grown and evolved over the last 20 years.
Great. All right, thank you, Dr. Ballard. So what are these lessons learned from the past 20 years? So from the community college, what we have found from the community college side, ask for specific ways to make the transfer easier. Speaking through the academic lenses, are your pathway programs in place for your associate degrees to your bachelor's degrees? How is that working for students? Is there a relationship between your community college academic advisors and your university advisors? What does that look like? That leads me to the next point. Reach out and make relationships. Relationships are key between, and in our experiences, between community college and universities. Relationships are critical, and it shows this in the literature as well, between the administration, between the community college and the university, but also the academic advisors from both institutions. And the faculty relationship is key. Those faculty relationships at both institutions, their counterparts from the university to the community college, vice versa, so critical in building those relationships, building those pathways, and keeping those pathways. And you may file it in different ways in your state, but in Texas, we call that an articulation agreement. And we put a pathway in that articulation agreement. And there's a lot of logistical details that go into that. And it is so critical for those relationships to be in place, because obviously in academia and in academic programs, you're gonna have changes. So we wanna have that pathway, the latest pathway in place, so that student knows what they need to get to earn that associate's degree and then transfer for that bachelor's degree. And then looking for opportunities to create partnerships from the community college and university pathway, community college and university in the community. How can we do a partnership starting at the high school? One thing that we have done, we have started with one of our associate's degree We have started a pathway in the high school that they will earn their associate's degree by the time they graduate or a little bit after they graduate high school, and then they're well on their way into their bachelor's degree. This is all about student success. The partnership is all about student success. How can we serve these transfer students, these original community college students better? What are those barriers? What do those barriers look like? How can we help serve them better? Because if we're not serving the student, we're not going to reach that student success that we're looking for, and that student earning not only that associate's degree, but that bachelor's degree. One thing that I have worked really hard, and Dr. Ballard taught me when I started working for her years ago, is that when you partner with especially a university, when you partner with when a university partners with a community college, the message has to be clear. We want you to earn that associate's degree first, and then earn that bachelor's degree. So those communication components are critical. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, soliciting that faculty, staff, and leadership support is critical as well.
On the university side, as I sat here and reviewed this slide, I think how humorous it sounds right now in this COVID-related world that we're dealing with. But even so, and we all know that this is soon to be over, at least that's our hope and our prayer. But think about this in the situation when we're back to, quote, normal. But certainly from 20 years ago, we had no technology to speak of other than computers, but we didn't have internet, we didn't have the accessibility that we do today. So it was critical for us that we had to go to the community college. It was important to show that we meant business and that we were serious about this. So we wanted to meet them where they were. As an administrator, a faculty, staff, whatever you are at the university level, just look constantly to remove the barriers that are in the way for students. You'll hear me talk a little bit later about Core Complete and how important that was to remove that barrier here at the private school. Educate your academics on the advantages of accepting transfers. I continue to be amazed at the number of academics, faculty, and administrators who truly don't understand what a transfer student is, what they bring to the college, and what they're all about. So it's really important to look at it as an educative process. Engage all departments in recruitment. It's not just about the recruiters or the admissions team. It's everybody's business to be about recruitment. Secure faculty, staff, and leadership support. Most of all, you've got to have that leadership at the top that says, this is important and we need to do this. Once you have that support from the top, then soliciting individual faculty and staff to really buy into that is so crucial. Create those pathways, make it a visible, physical, outward reaching situation so that everybody understands that this is a clear path from one institution to the other. It is important to engage with the community. I think it helps the community to know and understand that we're working together to try to secure a more viable, employable workforce for them, whether they're coming from the community college or the university or both. And so if they see in our engagement with the community that we're working together, then that really heightens that. Similarly, it's important that the university have a presence in the community where that community college is. So in the situation where Kelly comes from right now, I suspect that everybody in Mount Pleasant, Texas knows that A&M Texarkana is on that campus because she is such a zealot for sharing that information with the community, of being in organizations, of supporting the chamber, all those kinds of things that are expected of us as servant leaders. And then last but not least, work with the community college on recruitment, help them get students in so that if they finish there, then they come on to you and everybody's a winner then. They get to check them as a completer and then we get to check them as a completer. So it's a win-win.
Right. I just would add one thing, Dr. Ballard, you made me think of it. So being a doctoral student and rich deeply in the literature, one thing that I found, a direct quote, was that, the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it was also said in the literature on university and community college partnerships, it takes a village to do a community college and university partnership. And that is so true. And that's just echoing the comments that you shared as well. But it truly does. And really, one thing that I have learned now going on, this will be my 5th year in this position, and Dr. Ballard has taught me this, breaking down those communication barriers between university and community college. You know, we're human. People are not going to be happy about something, but it's so critically important that you face that challenge, that situation head on. And that can be an academic issue. It can be a recruitment issue. Make sure, as Dr. Ballard said, you know, you want to make sure that your recruitment is in line with the community college and they don't feel like you're competing with them. So, but great comments, and I'm always appreciative of what Dr. Ballard has to share as well.
So when we talk about the support for transfer, I think it is important to identify who does what. Does the community college do certain responsibilities and the university do certain ones? So let me take the community college first, Kelly, and then I'll let you share what the university side does. First of all, the community college really does need to work to provide the general education courses for the student's field of study or the technical degree to which to graduate with that associate's degree. I think it is incumbent upon the community college to truly help that student identify a path. We know that very few of us know what we want to be when we grow up, when we go to college, right? And so some of us will often go down 1 or 2 or 3 different trails, but it's important, and the onus is on those individuals at the community college to help that student understand you've got to get on a path and stay on it if you're going to be a transfer student, because every course, every hour counts toward that grade and degree completion. And so that I think is critical, and more community colleges are embracing that and understanding that it's not a good thing to let a student get stuck at the community college and do what I affectionately call swirl. They just kind of go from major to major to major and never really do understand what they're after. Students get comfortable in their settings, whatever those settings are. And so it's hard to get out of that comfort zone sometime when they need to move on. So we have to be wary and be aware of that. Number 2, work closely with the community college faculty for pathway programs. And you'll hear me say this again, but the MOUs that we create at the top, the articulation agreements between president to president, those are wonderful for media. They're wonderful for publication, for marketing for both institutions. But let's be real. If you want to get down into the nuts and bolts of transfer students, you've really got to get down faculty to faculty, program to program. So it's really important that you don't just stop at the top and make it artificial, but rather you go down deeper. And then last, work with the university on advising for pathway programs. Those community colleges can't know what the students need at the 2-year institution if the universities don't tell them. So it's important that they share and communicate what lower division courses will transfer, what won't you accept, what course is it that's the requirement in mathematics, for example, in order to get into a particular degree. Then they can advise the students effectively. So those are some of the things I see at the community college that we can all be vigilant and consider whenever we're looking to do the best we can for our students. Kelly, what about the university side?
All right. Just to echo some of the things from the university's perspective that Dr. Ballard already shared, and Dr. Ballard already mentioned this, creating pathways for students with the help of community college faculty. The university faculty need to be engaged with community college faculty. That relationship is so critical. I had a university president tell me one time, it's almost common sense. We don't really need literature to tell us that, it's common sense. But again, it's just so critical because there's going to be changes in both programs, and to ensure that we're serving the student correctly and to the best of our ability, that relationship comes into place. Again, just encouraging those university faculty with the help of the administration to work with community college faculty and providing them the resources to do so. Obviously, in a COVID world, we do a lot of Zoom meetings, but before, we have a lot of university faculty that travel to the community college. So, you know, leadership at the university providing support so faculty can do so at the university. The university should oversee the articulation and pathway logistics. Many institutions now, maybe not so much now with limited resources for higher education, but they were hiring articulation specialists And that individual, all they do is work on articulations from the community college to the university for their particular institution. It is a full-time job overseeing and working with those articulation agreements. Usually there is an expiration date. For us, it's 5 years. Usually your university system determines that part of it. But in keeping those up to date and the legal aspect of that to ensure that we're serving the student to the best of our ability. One way we do that, we call it the Articulation Bible, and we file everything in an Excel sheet. And when we update or do a new pathway, we put what that pathway is from. It could be the Associate of Science degree to psychology to the Bachelor of Science in Psychology. And we put when that articulation event, or excuse me, that articulation document was signed and when it will expire, and to make sure that we're keeping those up to date. And again, not to put it all on the faculty, but that articulation specialist, in our case, it's myself and my lead academic advisor. We work together to make sure that those pathways are up to date with the faculty member. And again, it's critical, Dr. Ballard mentioned this, working closely with the advising. We have semester meetings with our community college faculty, our community college advisors, to make sure, hey, what's working when we advise these students, what's not working. Because lots of times the community college student says, hey, I want to transfer to that institution, to A&M Texarkana. Well, how is that working? What does that look like in those steps? So having those open conversations, those very candid conversations with those academic advisors, one, so we can serve them better, and how we can work on that process. Because in my experience, it's just a continual growing experience on how we can better serve the student. And one thing that we have started doing, we have semester meetings. We call it an advisory board meeting, and we bring stakeholders from the community college and the university, and also within the community, to say, hey, what's working in this partnership? What's not working? What do we need to improve upon? And to really keep those conversations open. The literature is very evident that communication and teamwork and leadership support is critical in the community college and university support. All right, so marketing examples. So as we've been going through this presentation, you've seen some lovely cookies that say A&M Texarkana at NTCC. That is actually a former graduate of our program that now has a famous, or not a famous, but a fabulous, it may be famous, she does sell a lot of cookies on Facebook, her account's on Facebook. And she is one of our students, and we're super proud of her. But we have examples of how we market between the partnership. Again, as the university, coming from the university side, we don't want the community college in any way to feel threatened, to feel like we're being competitive with them. And one of those things with the articulation is we have an MOU agreement. And in that MOU agreement, we talk about, okay, hey, what's marketing going to look like for both institutions? So we talk about that both institutions need to agree upon that. And these are just some of the examples that we do, that we work with NTCC on our marketing pieces. And again, when I first started this job, the provost at the time was very big on strategic planning, which is critical. And one of the things we talked about the logo, because it's Texas A&M University-Texarkana at Northeast Texas Community College. It's a mouthful. So it was proposed to our planning board, oh, we just need to shorten that we need to maybe take off NTCC or Northeast. Oh, no. They did not want to do it, because it's critical that NTCC's name, they did let us shorten it a little bit where we can do the acronyms, but it's critical that they're a part of our marketing, and that partnership is so key. So anytime I go into the community, anytime we have a marketing piece on our programs, it's A&M Texarkana at NTCC. And we're very clear in that message too, that we want the student to earn that associate's degree first, and then transfer to the institution. Dr. Ballard, did you have anything to add?
I was just going to mention, Kelly, again, for our audience, you see those on the survey there, you see the three pillars, and TAMUT is by far the most the most advanced. And those three institutions are actually very similar in philosophy and mission and equidistant from NTCC. Commerce is A&M, Texas A&M Commerce is a little bit further. UT Tyler is probably a little bit less than Commerce, and then Texarkana is probably the closest, but still 20 years ago, that was not the case. Commerce clearly outranked everybody. And so there's been that complete shift to Texarkana, and it's the results of some of the things that we've been talking about here today. So
thank you for sharing that, Dr. Ballard. Okay, so from the data, what I have learned from my dissertation. So three themes, or I'm sorry, 3 to 4 themes that I have learned is, this is from a student. For me, the advisors and people on campus were helpful, but at the same time, a little bit of knowing what you want people to help you better. And I didn't really feel like I had all that, but community and college instructors were great as well. So what he was saying in that was, well, I didn't really sometimes know where to go in the beginning. I knew I wanted to get a university degree, but I also wanted to get a community college degree. So I needed all that information really up front. Like, how does this partnership work? Because keep in mind, when you're talking to that new student, and a lot of times they're a first generation college student, they have no idea what the word articulation, pathway, 2+2 plan, what that means. So really just that communication with the student, hey, this is what you need to do to get your associate's degree, and reassuring them, nurturing them in that process. This is how the partnership works. And we also had some good comments. Transfer team was up to date with all information they provided so that they can provide accurate, but it's critical that they provide accurate and timely information to the students that are trying to transfer. And that is key. That is one thing that I found with academic advising. Hey, we need to make sure that our pathways, our admissions requirements are up to date, both for the community college and the university, especially from the university side. So when that student is transferring, they know that GPA possibly that they're going to need or other admissions requirement. This is kind of comical to me working in this world, but a student comment, I didn't even know, referring to what a pathway was. So again, educating that student. I'm being re-educated through all this, but educating that student, what is a pathway? What is a 2+2 plan? What does it mean to transfer from a community college to a university? Explaining them everything there is to know about the partnership is so key, because that student wants to know, but it also relieves that insecurity, because we do serve a lot of students in rural Northeast Texas that have a lot of insecurities. They're first generation college students. There's a lot of barriers. So anything that we can help ease that process a little bit, whether it's explaining something on the admissions process, is key. Financial aid was another theme. So there's a big cost difference between the community college and university. This student had to apply for student loans, which tripled the amount in 2 years for her student loan debt, which she's going to have to pay that student loan debt back. And Pell Grant does not pay for everything at the university as it did at the community college. So really that financial literacy, what does it mean, again, to take out a loan? What does it mean for my Pell Grant? How much can I use of this Pell Grant at the university? Having these open conversations with the student is key, and having all that information in one document or in a presentation is key, so they can know what to expect. So another student said, understanding the enrollment process so you could move forward after the community college. And I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but again, that's another academic advising theme on how you can relieve those insecurities, having all of that information in front of the student. We work with a lot of non-traditional students, adult learners, but we also work with traditional students, but they're considered an adult learner because they're already working, or they have a family, or they're supporting their family that they live with, the brothers and sisters, mom and dad. And lots of times this is a family decision. So having that information all available to them is key. One student made this was a very very strong comment. So some of this is on the federal government. They really don't provide us a lot of services to students as they should provide us to set us up for failure. And he's talking about financial aid. For example, we allow them to take out that student loan, but we really don't educate them to the best of, or do we educate them to the best of our ability? I know at my institution we can do better, but what does it mean to defer process, non-deferment process? How am I going to pay this loan back? Will I have a grace period? What is my interest rate going to look like? And his comment was on this that, you know, the federal government lets us take the loan, but they don't really do any education services on what that means and the financial responsibility that comes with that. And I think he also said that a lot of students think it's free money. And that is definitely not the case, and we know that. So those emerging themes were academic advising, what's expected, financial aid, but also creating transition programs and for community college students so they can feel more at ease at the university, providing better information on enrollment processes and financial aid processes. Dr. Ballard, did you have anything to add?
I think you've covered it. It sounds like that the themes came through, the messages came through.
Yes.
And the sad thing about it is they really haven't changed over time.
Right.
So we know we continue to fight those barriers as they occur.
Absolutely.
So in thinking about, in beginning to close here and thinking about this presentation that we've given you, it occurs to me that one of the downsides to the virtual conference is not being able to have that interaction and engagement. Kelly and I both are very participatory. And so if we were being able to do this live, there'd be discussion about these things rather than our sharing with you just our one experience. But the reality is that many of you probably have a common experience as much as we do. But some of the takeaways that I've learned over these past few years about the transfer process are these. Embrace core complete. Now that one is really coming from me. The universities in Texas are obligated by our state legislature to embrace the gen ed curriculum that the two-year student provides transfers to the university. And we call that core complete if they complete all of the general education, and most of you know these things. And so when they transfer to the university is obligated at least to acknowledge those. Now, as we all know, individual disciplines can certainly go in and overlay their own expectations. So my classic example of this is that college algebra counts for the math requirement, but you may need calculus in order to be able to be certain kinds of math majors or engineering majors or whatever. And so it's those kinds of things at the university that continue to plague. But at the private school, most private schools do not have to, nor do they choose to embrace a core complete transfer student. And I'm so proud to say this is a barrier that we've been able to knock down here at St. Edward's. This last spring, our Board of Regents approved that any transfer student that came to this four-year institution could go right into their junior level coursework, core complete. They would have completed the first 2 years. And then we continue to inculcate the mission of this institution, which is one of social justice, of giving back, of teaching, teaching with the heart in mind. All of those areas that are so critical to our private school, we contend they can get those in their junior and senior years. So we don't punish transfers who come in and are core complete and make them take a lot more courses just to get to their major. Truly a one-stop shop. Kelly was describing the pains and agonies that our transfer students have, and the simpler we can make it, the better. And so if you've got a one-stop shop where I can identify one person and go to them and get my questions answered, students love that. And again, it all goes back to relationships. If I could say any one thing out of this, it's the relationship that student makes with someone at the community college and someone at the university that gets them through the pipeline. And so for that reason, a success model, a coach model, a success coach model is the best approach for transfer students between the community college and the university. That way, that community college student goes to a transfer success coach. They know and understand where that student's coming from, and they can help them right through the pipeline. Create a common communication system so that advisors, faculty, and administrators can all speak the same language. Core complete, that was a term that I had to educate lots of people on this campus about, but there's a way to do that. And so you have to work tirelessly to be able to do that. Create a transfer center. Get serious about this business, y'all. If you're a university, put some money where the mantra is and get in there and create a transfer center. Even better, create one on their campus, which is the model that A&M Texarkana has now, and it is working, as you can see from the numbers. And then finally, it's best if you can have sort of one expert on your campus that can address specific transfer issues, because there are always those unique things that come along. And so if you've got one person that's kind of your go-to, and at a much larger institution, obviously it might be a team of people, but create that centralized place where everybody can go to for questions that they could have answered.
Great. Okay, just real quick, because we want to be cognizant of time, but what the literature says, and we all know that Aspen Institute is a great resource. But again, in Dr. Ballard, this is just to reiterate some of the things that she said, but communication is critical, sharing that data, and then dedicating those resources to support transfer success. And when you have that, it will produce a successful partnership. It won't always be perfect, but through communication and in teamwork, you will get there. And just another from the literature, you want to make sure that there is equal treatment for both at the community college and the university for the students, and that the faculty have a critical role or a critical stakeholder in those articulation agreements, and making sure that those articulation agreements are clear for bachelor's degrees at the university, but also students that possibly don't have an associate's degree. And because a student has a choice, we don't like to say that. We want them to get that associate's degree, but there are some students, not very many, but that say, hey, I just want to get core complete at the community college and then transfer. So we need to be cognizant of that as well. Obviously having agreements in place for specific programs, courses, and also being open with private colleges and university and those statewide articulation agreements. And then again, critical, the data-driven, the data is critical to be evident. How well are those state articulation agreements working? All right, that concluded our presentation. Thank you so much. As Dr. Ballard said, we wish we were with you face to face, but obviously that is not possible in this COVID world. Dr. Ballard, I'll let you close you out, but thank you all so much. If I can ever assist you or if I can ever learn from you, please feel free to share your comments or questions with me.
Well, just speaking as a first-generation college student, a former community college graduate, an employee of a community college, an employee of a university, I can honestly say that being able to be an advocate for all students, but particularly community college transfers, is one that I've never tired of, and I want us all to continue to fight the good fight to help these students meet their goals, because in the end, we all win. So thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if you get the opportunity to go to those people like Dr. Ballard and your institution that have been a part of that historical, how did this work? Those individuals are so critical, the past to how you can move forward in the future. And I encourage you to become besties with those people, because their knowledge and expertise is so helpful in community college and university experiences. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Kelly.